Hey guys, welcome back to The Crafty Couple. Today's video, we're going to show you how to create some affordable but high-end looking home decor. So if you're looking for an affordable alternative to Anthropologie or West Elm type decor pieces, today's video will be absolutely perfect for you. And if you guys enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which project's your favorite. For our first project, we're going to be taking these over-the-door hooks and creating a very beautiful modern boho looking coat hanger. So the first thing that you want to do here is take these over-the-door hooks, and where they meet with the main part of the other hooks, start bending that back and forth. And you want to try and bend it as close as you can so that you don't see any of that left over after. It's a little bit hard, but you should be able to still bend those and get that to break off. Once we have those pieces broken off, what we don't want to do is glue these down right next to each other, because that middle gap will be a lot smaller than the other gaps of these hooks. So you want to space it out a little bit so that it looks natural and looks like it's all one piece flowing together once we glue this onto the wood. And this wood piece is just a 5-gallon stir stick that I got from Walmart. They come in a pack of 3 for just under $1. And what I'm doing is I'm lining it up almost with the very outside hooks, and then I'm gonna mark it off there so we can cut. What I found is that at the end of the stir stick, it starts to curve, and that's where I'm gonna actually be cutting right there. And I'm using this Black & Decker jigsaw. We'll have a link for that. It's a very affordable way to cut some of these small wood pieces. For the stain, we're using an early American stain from Minwax, and we're gonna go ahead and stain this entire wood piece. To give it a little bit of a lighter look, after dipping the rag into the stain, I tried to wipe off any excess so that it didn't completely soak the wood, and it was a fairly dry rag when I was actually applying the stain. Once we have our wood piece stained, we can move on to gluing it to our hooks. So again, what you want to remember is we're gluing it almost at the very edge of that last hook. So it does overhang just a little bit, as you can see there. And what I did is just put a bunch of hot glue on the back there, and then I'm gonna press it down and hold it, allow it to dry. And as always, we do recommend, if you want a stronger hold, maybe use wood glue or E6000. But for time purposes, we like to use this hot glue. And then also, I'm gonna glue it on the back here just to make it stronger. One thing to keep in mind is when we hang this, we're actually gonna be hanging it from the hooks. So there's not gonna be any pressure on that wood. So hot glue should work just fine for this project. After we've glued our first piece, we can move on to the second and just do it the exact same way and try again to make sure that spacing is the same so that the entire thing looks cohesive and as if it was just one hook rack. And after we have that piece glued down, that's gonna complete this project. Again, a very affordable and simple DIY project.
For this project, you'll need 2 of these foam hoops. One of them, you will just take the sticker off, and we will go ahead and cut it in half right where the seam is on one side, and then just try and guess where the seam would be on the other side and cut about there. They are not hollow on the inside like I thought they were, so you will have to cut through the foam all the way. These will end up being 2 candle holders for decorative purposes only, but I was definitely inspired by Anthropologie and West Elm. For the part that will come up to hold the candle, I just used a toilet paper roll. That's the only thing that I had on hand, and I thought it worked perfectly. So it's going to stick up just a little bit, so I cut the toilet paper roll. Once I had both pieces cut out, I just put it up against the curve of the foam, and I'm just marking about how curved it is, and I will be cutting that with a knife, as you'll see in just a minute. Once you have that curve cut on both sides, it'll fit perfectly on top of the foam. For the other one, it'll be a lot easier. We are just going to use the first one as a template. I did find it a lot easier to flatten it completely, then just use your pen, then just go in with the knife and cut both sides at the same time. You'll need to make small adjustments as you go, but this is the easiest way that I could find. Now that those pieces are all cut, we are just going to hot glue it on top. So I'm just putting some hot glue on all the pieces that will have contact with the foam, and I'm putting it directly in the middle, on top, and then directly center so that it's not lopsided. Now we are going to make it the bigger circle vase, so you will just need the same foam. That seam that we cut before, you will just want to sand on this one. Don't know why, but I can't find the footage of me cutting the bottom. I just did that so that it can stand up. And just like before, we are going to use a toilet paper roll to have the top part. This one is going to be quite a bit taller, so just like before, you're going to cut it slightly, and then I flattened it, and then we're going to cut just the curves so that it'll fit on top. Mine was a little bit too tall, so I just went in with a ruler and cut the top off. Just like we did before, I just went in with the hot glue and then put that back on. So this is where I had to try several different things to get the texture that I wanted. Originally, I used Dollar Tree's Caulk to try and get all of the toilet paper rolls covered and try and make it look like one solid piece. It did end up working for me, but I thought that I could sand it down. I couldn't sand it down since it turns into a rubbery texture. So after I did this, I went in with the Spackling from Dollar Tree and filled in all the spaces, and that ended up working really well. So I would actually just go in with the Spackling if you can, and just go around where the toilet paper roll meets the foam instead. And then also use the Spackling to just push it in all those little tiny holes, just so that it gives it more of a smooth look. I think that'll save you a lot of time, because this did take quite a bit of time to wait for the caulk to dry and all of that, and to fill in all the spaces, and it didn't look as smooth as I think it would if you just used the Spackling instead. This is what it looked like after the caulk dried. Like I said, you can see a lot of the ridges. That's when I went in with the Spackling. The Spackling from Dollar Tree did cover all 3 of the projects. It worked perfectly to just go in around where the seams were, and the caulk didn't cover up the seams perfectly. So please, if you do this, just go into the Spackling instead. The caulk really was just quite a bit of work. Dollar Tree Spackling is a little bit dry, I've noticed, but it does say on the packaging that you can add a tiny bit of water. That's what I did, and it worked perfectly. I just went in with my finger. I don't know if that's perfectly safe, so if you were to do it, please put on a glove. This also dries way faster and can be sanded down, and it looks way prettier in the end. Also, if you just have little tiny parts that you don't need to sand down, you can go in with a wet sponge, and it does smooth out the spackling quite a bit, and you don't have to worry about roughing up the spackling quite as much. Then I just finished them off with some spray paint. I finished the two smaller ones off with matte River Rock, and then the bigger one off with matte Clamshell. And I feel like those colors fit them perfectly. I decorated these with Dollar Tree tea lights. To make them stand a little bit higher, I just grabbed these cubes from Dollar Tree and put them at the bottom, and then took off the metal part of the candle and put them inside. Please, please, please do not light these. These are for decorative purposes only. And then this larger one, we found this just in our yard. We just have a lot of these kind of weeds and stuff like this growing. I thought it was really pretty, and plus I didn't have to buy it, which is also a plus for me. If you want to find out how we made this large art piece, please leave a comment below and we'll make sure to have that in one of our future videos.
For the boho wall hanging rainbow, we're going to start by creating the actual rainbow, and this is just some leftover foam board that I'm using. So I'm using the wreath and this basket as a template to create the half circle of the rainbow. So if you want to recreate this just as it is, you will want to pick these up. It just makes it easier to get those perfect circles. If you want to create it a different size, just find something that you can trace to make those circles. After I created those half circles, I did draw a line connecting them, and I'm using this right angle ruler. You can pick this up from Dollar Tree. This is perfect for this project. And what I'm going to do here is line it up with the top of the foam board so I can get those straight lines and that they're all even with each other. And I'm just going to go to each point of where those half circles meet the straight line, and I'm going to draw the lines going horizontal, as you can see here. Once we have those lines drawn, we can move on to extending them a little bit. So we're gonna make them 8 inches long from where the half circle and the vertical line are, and where those connect is where we're gonna draw 8 inches. So as you can see here, we're just continuing on with those smaller lines that we drew, and you can use this right angle and place it in the corners, as you can see here. That way they should all match up, be the same length, and they shouldn't angle towards each other. They should just be straight. Once we've drawn out those lines to 8 inches, I'm just going to use the ruler and mark off the bottom of those. That way we have our full rainbow shape, and then we can start cutting it out. I like to use these utility knives to cut foam board. Sometimes they can be a little bit tricky, but I found this to be the best way and easiest way to cut. So what I'm doing here is just cutting all the way across the bottom to get rid of that piece, and then I'll start cutting out sections. I wouldn't worry about trying to cut it all out at the same time, because if you can cut these straight lines out first, it'll make it easier for you then to go around the circle parts. Once we have all of those straight pieces cut, we can move on to these rounded edges. These are a little bit trickier. If you feel that your blade is getting stuck move on to maybe the other side, or go just past it a little bit and start cutting and come back to that after. You don't want to get hung up on there and then end up ripping it, or try cutting it from the other side and then meeting up with the part that you were stuck at. Once we have our rainbow form complete, we can move on to gluing our rope down, and I'm going to be using this white nautical rope from Dollar Tree, and I ended up using 6 strands of the 7-foot rope and 1 strand of the 11-foot. So the 11-foot is a little bit smaller in diameter, and we'll use that towards the end. The easiest way I found to find the middle is just to connect the ends and pull it tight, and then once we have that middle part, just pinch that and glue it to the top and try and get it as perfect to center. It should work out just fine if you do it this way. And then what we're going to start doing is just gluing it around our form. I would glue a little bit down and then move on to the next little bit. And if you're wondering, a lot of people have asked what glue we use, and it may be surprising, but we do just use these small glue sticks from Dollar Tree. And even though we're not using like a stronger E6000 glue, it works really well for us. So if you guys are having trouble with some other ones, maybe try out the Dollar Tree glue. Maybe they have a special ingredient, I don't know, but we really like how it's worked for us so far. And then what we're doing is just gluing all the way down to that bottom part, and then we'll glue the other side the exact same way. After you have the first row complete, you can move on to gluing the rest of the rows down and just following along where that first row is. So again, make sure you pull your rope tight and find that middle part so that you can glue that at the top of the rainbow, and then just follow your form all the way around. Once we have all of our rows complete, we will then use the 11-foot rope to go along the inside and the outside edges so that we can cover up that foam board. If we didn't, it would look incomplete and just not very good at all. After we have all of the rows complete, we can move on to the outside edges. As you can see, the foam board sticks out pretty bad, so we want to cover that up or else it'll just look really incomplete. And that's why we're using this 11-foot rope. It's a little bit thinner, so it will give some more dimension to the actual rainbow, but it will just complete it and make it that much better. So what I'm doing is you want to flip it over on the back side, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the form itself and then also on the back side of the ropes. And you will want to make sure that this is dried, since it's kind of an anchor point and we're going to be wrapping it around the rest of it. We don't want that to come loose while we're doing that. Once you've allowed that to dry, go ahead and flip your form back over, and then we can glue around the outside edge. So I just put a little bit glue down, and then I would glue some of the rope, let it dry for a second, and then do a little bit more, so a little section at a time until we get all the way around to the other side. Once we get to the other side, you'll want to flip it over again and then glue the rope underneath the other strands, just like we did at the very beginning. As you can see, that rope comes underneath those strands, and then we're going to glue it up and around the inside edge. Once you've gone around the entire inside edge, you're going to come back to where we first started. And from there, what we can do is we can trim off any of the excess rope that we don't need. Make sure that you leave just enough so that you can tuck it underneath those other strands, and then that way it will look completely seamless, and that will really hide the foam board and complete this look. After we have the form complete, we can move on to adding the wood, and this again is just one of those 5-gallon stir sticks from Walmart and cutting it with that jigsaw. So I'm cutting it right where it starts to curve there at the end so that we have a completely straight piece of wood. I didn't stain it or anything. I thought it looked really well, just kind of that raw wood look. And then I just eyeballed it. I didn't really do any measurements here. I just placed it where I thought it looked good, and then put the glue on the rope itself and glued the wood down. The last part of this project is to go through each of these strands and unravel them. So if we left it as is, it would look a little bit weird with just the rope hanging down. I think this really completes it and takes it to the next level. So go through each side. As you can see the difference there, it just gives it a lot more character and looks a lot prettier to me. Go through, unravel all of those, and then once we have that done, what you want to do is cut the ends off to make them even. I find the easiest way to do this is to hang it on the wall, and then that way you get the true effect of how it will look as it's hanging, and that will complete this project. Thanks for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed today's video. We wanted to let you know that a good friend of ours, Ashley, has an amazing Dollar Tree group on Facebook. It's called Dollar Tree DIYs and Decor plus Cricut Crafts. So if you've ever wondered how to kind of get into Cricut, this is a perfect way to get started. Plus, there's a ton of other people involved. It has over 200,000 members, so you can get a lot of good ideas and see what other people are doing. We'll have a link for that in the description below so that you can jump through and check that out. But as always, guys, we hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time we upload a new video.